So the world's largest uncapitalized asset is human labor, right?
Okay.
So again, this is kind of just a recap, but I'm kind of building up to the next slide. So in modern finance, nearly every form of value producing asset has been capitalized, right? So a factory's production capacity, company's brand, software, pharmaceutical patents, et cetera, have all been capitalized. They're all assets on companies' balance sheets, and they contribute to a company's market cap. Okay, so now we're talking about labor. So there's about 60 trillion, as far as I can tell, in annual economic activity due to labor, so wages and salaries and benefits, right? Yet none of that has any stock ticker assigned to it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So here's
Oh,
an example.
too
So
many
let's
words.
consider a factory worker that earns $90,000. Okay. Total compensation includes payroll taxes, benefits, whatever, et cetera. So for the factory, that's a $90,000 cost per year. Okay. It reduces their profit margins. They have to pay out that money. It reduces their margins. Now, let's say we get to the point where a humanoid robot can be deployed to replace that person. Okay. And let's say the cost of that robot is $50,000 a year to the factory. So the factory is saving $40,000. And that actually would help that company in the sense that their profits would go up, and therefore their market value would reflect that in a higher market capitalization, so that they get to capitalize the savings. But if we look at it from the robot manufacturer's viewpoint, Tesla in this case, right, by selling Optimus, by supplying Optimus to this factory, Tesla has created a new recurring revenue stream that's highly predictable of, in this case, $50,000 a year. So now you apply what I call the magic of the stock market to this. So this new 50,000 in revenue, let's say, produces a net profit of Tesla of $25,000. Okay. And let's say we assign it a PE multiple of 40. I could easily make the case it should be much higher than that, but let's just go with 40. Okay. So for every new robot that you deploy, it increases Tesla's market cap by $1 million. By replacing a single human job, Tesla's added $1 million to its stock market value. They've capitalized labor. And then you look at the scale of this, Herbert. So for every 1 million Optimus, that's $1 trillion in stock market value. At 100 million Optimus, that's 100 trillion in stock market value. And 100 trillion is scratching the surface. We have 8+ billion humans on the planet. Not all of them are working, but a significant number are. So 100 trillion is still early on. And Elon has publicly talked about there being a robot for every human on the planet, and even as many as 2, 3, or 4 times. And that's before we even get to the off-planet uses, which is a whole nother opportunity. So this, I think, is very clear to me. This is going to become the largest industry in the world at some point.
I think it's clear to me as well at this point. But basically, right now, there is not a company that sells human labor. In the past, it was called slavery, where they would buy a human and then would sell it to some company. They would buy that human. Now, that, of course, was slavery, which is absolutely atrocious and all that. So that stopped, which is thank goodness. And so now there's no business of selling human labor. But now, if you have a humanoid robot, it's not human labor, but it's labor. And that was just something that no company was doing this, and now there is.
Yep.
And so there's a brand new industry, a brand new market, and it happens to be the largest market, right? Larger than energy, you said. It's like the number one.
It's at least 5 times, if not 10 times larger than the energy market. And if the energy market right now is capitalized at 7 trillion, that's how you get to 35 to 70 trillion just on that, just a simple analysis. But again, energy is a pretty low margin commodity type business. And if you think about a humanoid robot, it's actually the combination of labor and intelligence. So just on the surface of it, the combination of those two should result in a very high margin product. So just to say that it should be 5 or 10x energy, I think, is actually understating the opportunity here.
Gotcha. So that's number one. It's like a new market that happens to be the single largest market ever, and has now become available to companies to try to sell into that. And then the second thing is like 1 million Optimuses, 1 million bots deployed gets you 1 trillion in stock market value. million sounds like a lot, but actually, Tesla today sells 2 million cars.
Mm-hmm.
So a million robots, this doesn't seem to be the. And then I think most people here understand that if you can make one car, you could probably make 5 robots, even up to 10,
Maybe
per
more.
car
The
that you can
Optimus
make.
weighs about 3% of a Model 3, right? So from a mass perspective, it's a lot less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get to 1 million robots per year is actually not, it's going to take a time, right? But it's going to be, we'll get there. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of the basic math on this opportunity. And I think that if people understand this concept, I think it'll serve them well as they look at sort of all opportunities in disruptive tech, right? What's being capitalized, right? So you think about Airbnb, a company that was very disrupted, all right? They capitalized sort of unused, homes.
Yeah.
Right. Airbnb has an $80 billion market value today. Now, they're
a
just
great
taking a
example.
share of that revenue. If I put my home on Airbnb, then I'm getting that income myself. That remains uncapitalized. Airbnb's just capitalized their share of that. Uber has capitalized their share of people's driving time. But if you think about robotaxi, what is that? Robotaxi is capitalizing the time that humans spend driving a car, which is massive because we drive trillions of miles every year. Or how many hours do people spend in a car every year? It's a colossal amount of time. If you get to capitalize that, then that's why robotaxi is such a large market opportunity. It's that simple. The only thing I was just going to say is the only thing that remains is who's the winner in that space. It's clear that we're going to capitalize transportation, mobility, whatever you want to call it. We're going to capitalize that. Someone's going to capitalize it. Waymo is trying to. Uber wants to. Tesla's on track to as well. And other companies, in China perhaps. So the only thing that remains is who is going to end up with the biggest slice of the pie. But my message is that that size of that pie is absolutely enormous, even for robotaxi. It's absolutely enormous for robo-trucking, as we talked about recently. And the largest piece is human labor, which dwarfs the other two.
Is there a difference between when you capitalize something that didn't exist before and now you have, people are willing to pay money for something that wasn't something that they ever paid money for versus you're just taking share from other choices? So in the case of robotaxi, some part of that is people already spend bus fare, people already buy their own cars, but now robotaxi could just, suck in all of that spend into this new business, but it's basically existing capitalization. And then there is this extra thing that people would not have spent any money for, but now they would because it's easier and so forth. Yeah, there
is a distinction there, Herbert. So let's talk about bus fares for a minute. Let's assume that they're taking public transportation and now take robotaxi. In the case of public transportation, those entities are not public companies. They're owned by the cities or the counties that operate them. So they're uncapitalized in that sense, right?
I see.
If you then bring them into robotaxi, that's now capitalizing it. It's now giving a present value of those future cash flows. If you think about traditional taxi business and what Uber did, Uber capitalized a portion of that. But as the owner of the vehicle, or if I'm an Uber driver, they haven't capitalized my wages. They just capitalized their share of all that revenue. Robotaxi is going to capitalize everything.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Right? So that's a much bigger number. And the reason that that's going to work is robotaxi is offering a service that's lower cost. So that's why everybody's going to use it. But then you capitalize that and you end up with some pretty massive numbers at scale.
So it's almost like creating a business out of thin air.
Exactly.
Doesn't exist before. Now it does. Yeah. And that's why people always get confused when they say, but Cern, the existing market cap of the entire Dow, Dow Jones is only this much.
Yeah.
How are you coming up with huge numbers?
That has no bearing on this at all. So again, go back to the Coca-Cola example. They invent a fizzy drink.
Yeah.
Didn't exist before. They invent it. People like it. They consume it, consume more and more. Coca-Cola is successful in expanding, and look at the value that they've created on the back of that.
Yeah.
Right. Starbucks has invented, not that they weren't the only one, but they've been been the most successful in taking coffee, which people used to make for themselves, and getting people to pay a high price for it. Right. And part of it is not just the drink, it's the experience, it's the service, it's all everything wrapped into one. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why people pay money for these things. Right. Or in the case of Procter and Gamble with diapers, who wanted to spend any time cleaning out dirty diapers? Right. I mean, what a gift to humanity to say, hey, you don't have to do that anymore. Or washing dishes, or any of the things that we've invented over the years. Right.
Yeah.
But the key point is that you're creating value out of thin air because you've created a new product or service that never existed. But then from a financial perspective, you get to capitalize that. You get to find out what the present value of that business is. And that creates stock market value out of thin air. In this case, that present value, that creation of stock market value out of thin air results in a massive number. Mm-hmm. Even in the early days, even, as you start to approach 1 million robots, there's $1 trillion of market cap that's created out of thin air. So this I think is a critical concept for people to understand how value is created. One of the other things that some people will say is, Cern, there's not enough money in the world. How's this going to work? How do you go from 135 trillion in stock market value to double that? Well, my response is, if the value is being created, then the money will be also created to support it if necessary. Right? So it's
Can
that
you explain
simple.
that a bit more?
It's the value creation that matters. If you don't create the value, then the money won't be there. If you do create the value, then the money appears. Right? Because all money is something that humans have fabricated. There's nothing real about any of the money that we've created. Right? Fiat currency is just paper money, essentially. Or these days, digital entries in a bank. Nothing stopping the government from creating more if necessary, if it's needed.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, let's keep going here. I think I understood that now.
So, let's focus on the right side, perhaps, of this slide. So again, from an opportunity, I do agree that the revenue and profit per bot over time will go down. With scale, with competition, etc. But just look at these 3 examples. If you have 100 million bots earning 25,000 a year, and I kept the PE the same in all these examples, that's 100 trillion in market value. Let's say you get to now 500 million bots, right? 5x the number, but you're only earning $10,000 a year in profit. Well, you still get a doubling of the market value to 200 trillion. And now let's get to a crazy number of 2 billion bots in the world, which again, I ultimately don't think is crazy at all. And you're only making $5,000 per bot, right? The profit's now been cut in half from the previous example. Well, your market cap has gone to 400 trillion. Okay. So yes, the profit per bot and the revenue per bot will come down over time. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. But still, at scale, the numbers could still be huge.